This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. San Francisco, September 1977. Gang members stormed a popular restaurant in Chinatown, seeking revenge against their rivals.
They just come in there, they just start shooting out.
5 people were killed and 11 others wounded. Not a single gang member was hurt.
It shocked San Francisco, shocked the whole Chinese community.
There was suddenly a sense that maybe Chinatown wasn't the safe place that everybody thought it was.
The violence was the hidden face of Chinatown, a face that was kept under wraps for centuries.
In the Chinese culture, there's always some sense of secrecy.
The gangs of Chinatown, their roots stretch back to Imperial China. Their motives are as old as time.
Their main objective in life is to make money.
And the lust for wealth has kept Chinatown in turmoil as gangsters fight for control.
There were just way too many people getting killed. Most of the people killed were innocent bystanders.
Now, one of Chinatown's most notorious criminals reveals the inside story of its gang wars and why he's still under suspicion.
I run this city. Who can tell me something I cannot do? Nobody.
Gangland.
February 27th, 2006. It was late afternoon in downtown San Francisco. On Jackson Street in Chinatown, 56-year-old Alan Long and his wife were at work in their import-export business. A native of southern China, Long was a well-respected figure in the Bay Area. But someone wanted Alan Long dead. At 4 p.m., a masked gunman walked into his shop and began firing. Long's wife watched helplessly as her husband was killed. Then the gunman disappeared.
Who the killer is, we don't know. There's a lot of suspicion going on.
Federal and local authorities will not comment on the ongoing investigation. But it's reported that this man, one of Chinatown's most infamous criminals, has been a suspect.
Everybody look at me, I'm the one that did that. I'm the one that murdered. And I'm not.
For more than 3 decades, the 5'5" tall Raymond Chow, known on the streets as Shrimp Boy, has been at the heart of Chinatown's underworld. He denies any part in Lung's murder and has not been charged with the crime. But he openly admits that at one time, he controlled the majority of Chinatown's gangs.
The world is under my feet. I have my own security. I have everything. When you make so much money, you don't even want to count them. I'm not thinking I'm God, but in this city, I'm the man that called the shot.
Chow was born in Hong Kong in 1960. His grandmother nicknamed him Shrimp Boy because of his small size. At the age of 9, he joined a gang.
I just want to be the best gangster, be the best fighter, and party, making money, and also selling a lot of drugs, even back then in Hong Kong.
In 1976, Chow's family moved to San Francisco, where he enrolled in high school. At first, it seemed like a chance to start fresh, but a fight with a classmate proved otherwise.
I just only been in the school about a month or 2, and I shot the kid in the leg. Actually, I shot him in the ass.
Chow dropped out of school and spent his time practicing martial arts.
I'm training to hurt people. You, in your mind, you said it to, you want to just kick my ass. In my mind, I'm killing your ass.
He practiced here at the Chinese playground, a favorite hangout for local gangs. One in particular caught Chow's eye, the Hop Sing Boys. Chow was drawn by the gang's relationship to a secret organization called the Hop Sing Tong.
The Tong, to our tradition and culture, is a loyalty, trust, and honor. And that's why I get into it.
Tongs can be found on many streets and alleys in San Francisco's Chinatown. Their history dates back to the 1850s and the California Gold Rush, when Chinese immigrants were flocking to the city they called Gold Mountain.
It is seen as a place of considerable wealth, a place where people expected to be able to make their fortunes.
But many Chinese found themselves unwelcome in this land of plenty.
Some were being robbed, some were actually being taken advantage of from the early settlers, whether it was the Irish or Italians, and they didn't feel they could really go to the local law enforcement because a lot of the police were also of Irish descent.
The Chinese needed some muscle, the kind they had back in their homeland. Their secret societies called triads had for centuries worked to overthrow the government. The triads operated covertly, hiding from authorities. They developed an elaborate code, including secret hand signals in order to identify each other. In San Francisco, the Chinese organized themselves into similar societies, minus the politics. They called the groups Tongs.
They were just looking for that opportunity and said, hey, let's go ahead and form not so much a triad, but just forming an organization here where they can basically police themselves. They can protect the citizens here, as well as basically maintain peace.
Industries and families formed their own tongs and built meeting halls. Each tong was a form of self-government that looked after its own.
If you were a shoemaker, there would be a shoemaker tong. If you were a seamstress, there was a seamstress tong. They also developed under surnames. Like you were a Wong, you belonged to the Wong Tongs.
The tongs were, and are today, a lifesaver for thousands of hardworking immigrants. But the tongs have another side, concealed in the shadows of America's gangland. Some tongs have used their power to extort local merchants, legitimate and illegal, and they've recruited gangsters to do their dirty work.
Some of the tongs actually have a separate branch of gangsters who work for them, who would enforce the rules and regulations.
For decades, the FBI has kept a list of criminally influenced tongs. The Hop Sing Tong, where Raymond Chow was a member, was among them. Though which members were breaking the law wasn't clear.
If you say Hop Sing Tong is a criminal organization, you're wrong. You can't say that. Because there's people in there that are not criminals.
But some of the members, like Raymond Chow, stood out. Chow began working for the Hop Sing Tong in 1976. At that time, the Tong employed two gangs, the Hop Sing Boys and the Hua Ching, to enforce its illegal operations.
Gambling was actually rampant. It always has been because it's just part of the culture. And then peripherally, you have things relating to the gambling, such as the loan sharking. There was prostitution, there was some drugs, and also the sale of fireworks during Chinese New Year's as well as 4th of July.
Chinatown's underground markets were thriving. The Hop Sing Tong paid Chow and other gangsters from the Hop Sing Boys and Hua Ching to collect extortion money from illegal gambling dens. They also acted as guards for important people.
The explosion opened the door for us, you know, to working inside the gambling as a bodyguard, doorman. And that's why, you know, we started picking up, you know, a lot more knowledge.
But some of the gangsters wanted to be their own boss. A faction of the Hua Ching split away from the Tong. The gang was led by Joe Fong, and they would be known as the Joe Boys. Their formation set off a power struggle between Chinatown's gangs that would soon be their undoing. A battle erupted that centered around the sale of illegal fireworks, a staple in all Chinese celebrations, and one of Chinatown's most lucrative markets.
In my Tong and a couple of different Tong, the older member, they joined together and they bring the firecracker, come overseas, and we distribute.
During the 1970s, the Hop Sing boys and the Hua Qing controlled the market and extorted money from all the vendors, including the Joe boys.
Then, to add insult to injury, the Hua Qings would decide that they wanted to sell fireworks as well. So if we wanted to sell for $20 a case, they would then sell for 15 or 18 and so forth.
The Joe boys, declaring their independence, resisted the shakedown. Hostilities grew, and by 1977, a full-out gang war was underway.
Back then, when you pull out a machine gun, the is kicking off and getting serious. Pretty much everybody packing in Chinatown.
Then, on Independence Day, tensions exploded. A shootout took place here in the heart of Chinatown at the Ping Yun projects. Once again, the Hua Qing had the upper hand, shooting and killing a Joe boy. The Joe boys vowed revenge.
Everybody knew that things were heating up. It wasn't a matter of what was going to happen, but just when.
In the fall of 1977, the violence would come to a head. The Joe boys ambushed their rivals at a popular restaurant in Chinatown and blew apart a community that for years had kept the secret of its gangs under wraps.
I don't think people in this area ever looked at the Chinese community in San Francisco quite the same way again after the Golden Dragon.
September 1977, San Francisco. For months, a battle had raged in Chinatown's gangland over the distribution and sale of illegal fireworks. The lucrative market was controlled by the Hua Qing and Hop Sing boys gangs. But their rivals, the Joe boys, wanted to rule the streets. A shootout on July 4th left one Joe boy dead. Now, the Joe boys plotted to take out as many of their rivals as possible.
Well, they kind of surprised us. Surprised everybody.
For 2 months, the Joe boys cased a popular restaurant in Chinatown that was frequented by tourists and gangsters.
The gathering place was the Golden Dragon because on a regular basis, that's actually where the Hua Qing congregated for a late-night snack.
17-year-old Raymond Chow, a member of the Hop Sing boys, was at the Golden Dragon on the evening of September 4th.
That night, we have a 3 table in there. Everybody have good time.
Without warning, 3 Joe boys entered the restaurant and opened fire, spraying round after round from automatic and semi-automatic weapons.
When they first come in, you don't even see their face, you just heard a gunshot and everybody just dropped to the ground. I don't think when the Joe boy, they come in, they identify anybody. They just come in there, they just start shooting out.
This went on for less than 60 seconds, and they exited.
In their wake, 5 innocent patrons lay dead, including 2 tourists. 11 others were wounded. Not a single gang member was injured. Chow, a hardened gangster, felt lucky to be alive.
Every time after I got shot at, you just kind of have that fear and that sensation coming to your body and the cold sweat coming out. And then that is the time you start to realize, wow, this is what happened.
The news stunned San Francisco, which viewed Chinatown as a family-friendly tourist attraction.
In Northern California, we felt like we really didn't have any of that sort of stuff going on, and we were above that. And I think there was suddenly a sense that maybe Chinatown wasn't the safe place that everybody thought it was.
After Golden Dragon massacre, Chinatown had pretty much become a ghost town. The tourism was gone. At night, you hardly see anybody down there. It was just dead.
The residents of Chinatown were deeply shamed by the Golden Dragon massacre, yet they were wary of the police and unwilling to share their secrets.
The Chinese did not cooperate very much with the police. There was a sort of a sense of keeping it within the family and sort of keeping it to themselves.
They thought the police were corrupt because Asians back in China and Hong Kong, they had problems with the police.
And those problems went back centuries to the ancient gangs of Imperial China. In the 1600s, secret societies formed to overthrow the ruling Qing dynasty, which was viewed as corrupt.
They were Robin Hood type of bandits. They would actually steal from the corrupt officials and go back and give the money to the poor or feed the poor.
In 1911, the Qing dynasty collapsed. After years of living in secrecy and subversion, the societies, called triads, were rebels without a cause or an income. They turned to drugs and extortion to fill their coffers.
Through the years, the triads that started as patriotic organizations degenerated into basically criminal groups.
In 1949, Mao Zedong and his Communist Party took over China, and the secret societies relocated to British-controlled Hong Kong. Their symbol was shaped like a triangle that represented the three essential elements: heaven, earth, and mankind. In Hong Kong, the triad smoothed the way by buying off public officials, and before long, they infiltrated every aspect of Hong Kong's public life, including law enforcement.
The police officers in Hong Kong, the majority of them were all triad members. Let's say you're making a complaint against somebody to the police officer, and that police officer happens to be a triad member, you know, then there may be some very serious repercussion. So that mistrust has always been within the Chinese community.
And it transferred to the United States. In 1965, the U.S. opened its doors to a new wave of immigrants. Thousands of Asians moved to San Francisco. A culture clash developed between the American-born Chinese, whose ancestors had been here for generations, and the new arrivals. Within the San Francisco underworld, the American-born Chinese, called ABCs, were already organized into low-level street gangs.
They were just doing a little bit of drugs and stealing hubcaps, getting into fights, and like American graffiti, but in Chinatown.
The influx of immigrants gave the ABCs someone to pick on. They called the foreigners fobs. At first, the ABCs had the upper hand.
So the American-borns were making fun of the foreign-born teens, and they were making fun of the fact that they weren't able to speak English correctly and the way they dressed, and then they also started picking on them and physically beating them up.
What they didn't know is that many of the foreign-born teens had been in hardcore, often violent gangs back in Hong Kong. Now, the fobs organized to protect themselves. One of the first gangs to form were the Qing.
Instead of just retaliating and beating up the American-born Chinese, they were actually going back and terrorizing the American-born Chinese again and again, to the point where many of them were actually just afraid of going to school.
New gangs formed as teens scrambled to protect themselves.
When I grew up in Chinatown, there was at least 5 different gangs in Chinatown itself. You can't walk down a block without seeing a gang member.
Some of the gangs, like the Qing, hooked up with criminally influenced Tongs, who taught them the ins and outs of extortion. Local merchants had to pay both the Tongs and the gangs just to stay in business. Former gang member Bill Lee explains how the gangs shook down the cash.
They don't come out and say, you have to give us protection money. They would say, for instance, we're representing a youth group, and we want to actually raise funds for certain activities, and we would like you to contribute. But the merchants basically realized they didn't have a choice, because if they declined, the merchants would either get beaten up, or the windows would get broken, or they'd get firebombed.
The residents of Chinatown were under siege, yet they rarely went to the police, both out of cultural distrust and for fear of losing face.
It's something that is within our community. To report that I've been assaulted and I've been extorted is bringing shame.
That changed after the Golden Dragon Massacre in 1977. Following the shootout, the San Francisco Police Department acted quickly, creating their first gang unit that focused specifically on Chinatown.
The department had not been nearly so concerned about what was going on in Chinatown previously, and now they had had this big bloodletting that created a public furor, and they had to do something about it.
Police began building relationships with Chinatown's residents, and over time, they started talking. As cops made arrests, many street gangs disbanded, including the Joe Boys and the Hop Sing Boys. But gangs like the Hua Ching and gangsters like Raymond Chow survived by delving deeply into crimes that were more difficult for police to track.
What I involved with is not much on the street. You know, we involved with directly organized crime. We're dealing with drugs. We're dealing with money, gambling.
Chow's luck didn't last. In 1978, Chow was told that an illegal gambling den was operating on his turf. He went to collect the money, then realized he had accidentally interrupted a party.
I go up there and then we start to realize, you know, that is a party for a bunch of engineers. And you're already up there, you already draw your gun, and let's go do the job. And I rob everybody.
Chow was arrested and convicted of 17 counts of armed robbery. He was sentenced to 11 years in San Quentin prison.
I did time with Charles Manson, good friend of mine, Kimpo, serial killer. I did time with a bunch of amazing people. Each person you talk to, you learn something from them. Ain't no stupid people inside the prison. You can say that.
While Chow got an education in crime, the Hua Ching took advantage of Chinatown's lack of rivals. By the early 1980s, they controlled San Francisco's Asian underworld.
The Hua Ching was left unchallenged by other gangs, and so was able to collect protection money from everybody in San Francisco Chinatown.
But the game changed in 1982 when a new player arrived from Hong Kong. His name was Peter Chong, and he had been sent by the secret society of the Triad to the U.S. for one reason: to gain total control of the Asian underworld.
It was one of those things where it's either join or die.
San Francisco, 1982. It had been 5 years since the Golden Dragon Massacre shocked the city and spurred officials to crack down on the Bay Area's Asian street gangs. Only the Hua Ching had survived, quietly taking control of what remained of Chinatown's organized crime. Then, a wealthy new figure from Hong Kong arrived. His name was Peter Chong.
Peter was making friends with some of the local town leaders, and basically he was just using his financial influence to make friends in the community.
Peter Chong seemed to be a legitimate businessman, but he had a secret agenda. He belonged to the Wo Hop To. It was one of the strongest of China's ancient gang societies, the Triads. They had sent him to San Francisco for one purpose.
The attempt was to unite all Asian organized crime groups and gangs under one umbrella, under the Wo Hop To umbrella.
Chong had plenty of charisma and cash, but he needed enforcement, a right-hand man who knew Chinatown from the inside. His choice was a San Francisco gangster who had just been released from prison. Raymond Chow, aka Shrimp Boy, understood the ways of both the East and the West.
He wanted me, to kind of like a friend and then partner with him.
Together, backed by the Wo Hop To Triad in Hong Kong, Chow and Chong began building an empire. No crime was off limits.
They were engaged in loan sharking, gambling, extortion, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, prostitution, murder, you name it. I mean, they were doing it. Illegal alien smuggling, anything to make a fast buck.
The money was flowing, and many of the Bay Area's gangsters saw a golden opportunity. Peter Chong and Shrimp Boy offered a new start for Chinatown's criminal underworld.
The allure is very strong. You've got muscle, you have girls, you have money, you have guns, you have cars. What more could you ask for?
One dinner, we spend $30,000. Anything you dream of it. We go to bed with 7 girls. Ain't that fun? I mean, can you handle 7 girls at one time? No. But you have that feeling you are almost a world. That's what everybody looking for.
Gangsters who joined the Wo Hop To were expected to be loyal, but weren't required to make a blood oath. It was a stark contrast to the triads of days past. For centuries, China's triads required that new members go through an elaborate initiation. The ceremony instilled a sense of loyalty in new recruits, imperative for a society built on secrets.
The members who were joining the triads, they had poems and 36 oaths that the new members had to swear to.
They carefully guarded the identity of members by using a system of numeric codes to indicate rank and positions. The Dragonhead, or leader of the triad, was known as 489. The 438 was the Assistant Mountain Lord. 432 was the Straw Sandal, or the triad's communications officer. 426 was the Red Pole, the muscle behind the gang. Those rituals persisted until the 1950s, when, in an effort to crack down on organized crime, the Hong Kong government outlawed the triad societies, along with their ceremonies.
And subsequently, the triads simplified it even more, just to prevent detection by the police. And as a result, it can be as simple as just having a lunch with the leader of the triad organization, basically telling him that they swear allegiance to the triads.
In the 1960s, some of the gangs that formed in San Francisco's Chinatown tried to create a sense of loyalty by maintaining the old world traditions.
The Watching had rituals that were performed as part of the membership. There was initiation ceremonies and so forth. And it was very similar to what was done in the early days of the triad.
But over time, Chinatown's gangs had less interest in the old ways, and potential new members were given a choice: join or be beaten.
We just go into their hangout, their party, let them know where we stand at, and just started the fight, beat them down. Are you going to join with us, or you got to go?
New members rose in the ranks by committing small, then bigger crimes. But even the lowliest gangster was involved in extortion.
Extortion has always been one of those things that is easy to fall back on because the least skilled member of your gang can be sent out to shake somebody down.
Just as Chinatown kept its secrets, the gangsters kept theirs. There was little visible turf, unlike other gangs that staked out drug corners. And Chinese gangsters rarely identified themselves with tattoos or graffiti.
They're not going to claim a certain area because what you try to protect. It causes a lot of conflicts and doesn't really generate any income.
And more than anything, making money was the name of the game.
How they operate is very sophisticated. How money is laundered, how the gambling operations, how they proliferate, and how they sustain themselves. So it's not just by chance, and it's not just by brute force.
Though in a pinch, brute force will usually do the trick. That was clear in 1989, when the Wo Hop To Triad, one of Hong Kong's major gangs, came knocking on Chinatown's door with Peter Chong and Shrimp Boy leading the way.
They started out with the proposition that, we're trying to build something bigger here and we'd like you to be a part of it. And people who didn't want to go along with it ended up on the outs and became targets.
Chow said, if you go along with me, you live. If you go against me, you die.
Wherever Ray Chow and Peter Chong went, violence seemed to follow. Few resisted the Wo Hop To's takeover, except one man. His name was Danny Wong, and he was the leader of the Wa-Ching. Only he stood in the way of the Wo Hop To's total domination of Chinatown.
Danny Apai Wong was offered an opportunity to become part of the Wo Hop To umbrella, which he refused.
You don't join with us, where you gonna go?
For 10 years, the Wa-Ching gang controlled the underworld in San Francisco's Chinatown. But by 1991, Peter Chong and Raymond Chow had convinced almost all of Chinatown's gang members to join the Wo Hop To triad. Some were wooed with money, others were threatened with violence. There was one holdout, the longtime leader of the Wa-Ching, Danny Wong.
Danny Wong, he don't want to join with us, and because he think he had his thing going.
Conflict between the two gangs escalated. In April 1990, a Wa-Ching gang leader was gunned down outside a San Francisco nightclub. 1 month later, the Wa-Ching retaliated, killing one Wo Hop To member and wounding 7 others. A peace summit was called to end the bloodshed between the warring gangs. Raymond Chow represented the Wo Hop To.
They want me to be on the table, representing that peace talk between the Wo Hop To and the Wa-Ching. Peter wanted me to be there, and everybody got a piece. And we resolved that problem.
But in April 1991, Danny Wong was shot to death while sitting in his car on a street in San Francisco. At the time, Chow and Chong were out of the country. Although the crime was never solved, authorities had their suspicions. The head of the Oakland Police Department's gang task force, Harry Hu, was investigating gangland crimes in the Bay Area.
We believe Danny Apai Wong was killed by Wo Hop To.
With their leader Danny Wong out of the picture, the Wa-Ching agreed to join the Wo Hop To triad.
After he passed away, they all joined with us. Because I just told them, I'm not coming here to take your stuff, try to dominate you. You need money, we support you. You need dope, we supply you. If you need soldier, you have soldier. Everywhere you go, and you got friends, why not?
With the Wa-Ching now in its ranks, the Wo Hop To had loyal gangsters from San Francisco to Portland, Oregon. But Peter Chong, who had been sent to the U.S. by triad members in Hong Kong, wanted more. He masterminded a grand plan that he called Tien Ha Wei.
Under that umbrella of the Tien Ha Wei, Peter Chong wanted to unite all the Asian organized crime and gangs in America and control pretty much all the illegal activities in all the San Francisco Chinese communities in the United States.
The Wo Hop To began reaching out to Tongs in cities on the East Coast, including New York.
And Peter Chong sent Xuan Boy Chow, Raymond Chow, to New York, Chinatown, to work with the Chinese Tongs and criminal elements there.
Piece by piece, they began forming a national network of crime. Loan sharking, gambling, prostitution, and trafficking weapons were part of it. But the real money was in drugs.
Heroin is the main income.
The Wo Hop To's drug of choice was Chinese heroin, aka China White. It and other drugs were being produced in huge quantities in Southeast Asia and smuggled into the States.
We have our own chemists do the cooking for the speed, for the crank. We can make ice. We're already doing all that process back then.
These are some of the purest form of heroin on the streets. And as a result, there's a lot of money to be made by the gangsters.
I get a sense back then, when I'm 35, I'm gonna retire. I'm looking at $20 million, just my share.
By 1991, Peter Chong was well on his way to achieving the Whole Earth Association.
It did not take Peter Chong too long to consolidate his power base.
He almost succeeded, almost.
In Boston, Chong hit a roadblock. Boston's Chinatown had two main leaders. a gangster named Wayne Kwong, and Kwong's rival, Bike Ming. Kwong was willing to join forces with the Wo Hop To, but Bike Ming wasn't, and Kwong wanted him taken out.
Peter Chong agreed to send his Wo Hop To members to Boston to assassinate Bike Ming.
Several underlings were sent to kill Bike Ming, but chickened out when they saw police nearby. The failed assassination was a major setback for the Wo Hop To and a major coup for law enforcement. The FBI had caught wind of Peter Chong's scheme and was tracking his every move through wiretaps.
We were collecting intelligence, recruiting informants, and working to get a good knowledge base on Peter Chong and the Wo Hop To triad and their attempts to expand in San Francisco.
But the FBI faced a major hurdle. Not only were the gangsters speaking Chinese, they were using their own gangland code.
It was a language problem. A simple term like Dai Lo is the big brother. In gang slang, that means the gang leader. There were a lot of gang slangs being used that some of the linguists had no idea what they were talking about.
Yet over time, the wiretaps yielded a treasure trove of evidence, implicating the Wo Hop To in everything from murder for hire to drug distribution. The Wo Hop To's demise would happen as quickly as its formation. In 1992, the feds took down the wire and started arresting key members of the gang. Peter Chong was indicted on 48 counts of operating an international crime syndicate. But Chong caught wind of the shakedown before he could be arrested. He fled the country and hid out in Hong Kong. Shrimp Boy wasn't so lucky. He was arrested and put on trial. To his surprise, his former comrades wasted no time in ratting him out.
These folks all rolled over on each other fairly quickly and turned cooperating witnesses in an effort to try and make better deals for themselves with the prosecutors.
All those people you think is loyal to you, it's not true. The people you think is loyal to you, they all grab your money. Everybody take a pinch, everybody.
Chow was found guilty on 6 counts of trafficking firearms and sentenced to 23 years in prison. With Chong on the run and Shrimp Boy in jail, the Wo Hop To began to crumble.
When you take out the top guys, the rest of it falls apart.
For Chow, it was a betrayal of the worst kind.
My tears ain't dropping out. I don't even realize that. I don't even realize that. It's not you getting soft. You just, that kind of pain, you just don't know how to describe it, you know?
But the betrayal would only deepen when authorities finally caught up with Chow's former boss, Peter Chong. San Francisco, 2000. 8 years after the FBI took down the Wo Hop To, sending more than a dozen of its top leaders to prison. Raymond Chow, aka Shrimp Boy, was serving a 23-year sentence for trafficking firearms. His former partner in crime, Peter Chong, was on the run, having fled the United States in 1992 to avoid prosecution. But the feds were onto him.
We heard that he was running around in Asia, and so we passed the information to our legal attaché office located in Hong Kong. As a result of that, he was arrested by the Hong Kong authorities when he attempted to enter Hong Kong. And subsequently, he was extradited from Hong Kong back to the United States.
At the time of Raymond Chow's arrest in '92, prosecutors had offered him a deal to testify against his former boss, Peter Chong. Chow refused and fired his lawyers. Now, they made a similar offer, but this time, Chow had reason to be less loyal.
Peter hired my lawyer, and I'm depending on this lawyer, you know, my life. How the partner can do that for you? And I realized I was just a stupid motherfucker.
Raymond Chow felt that Peter Chong had betrayed him, and as a result of that, Raymond Chow decided to cooperate with the government and testify against Peter Chong.
On April 26, 2002, Peter Chong was convicted of 10 counts of racketeering, murder for hire, heroin trafficking, extortion, and arson, thanks in large measure to Chow's testimony.
It was essential for Raymond Chow to explain that in courts on exactly what he was doing with Peter Chong.
I testified in a court in front of him. Peter even cannot look at me in the face. Loyalty, trust, and honor. I only serve with my brother, with my friends, but not the people like you to backstab me. Goes around, comes around. I learned that when I was in the prison.
As a result of his cooperation with the courts, Chow was offered a reduced sentence. By 2003, he was back on the streets.
Raymond was the hands-on guy. He was the one that was personally involved in a lot of criminal activities, and he was the violent one. So to cut a deal with him, personally, I thought it was wrong.
Chow now lives back in Chinatown, but in the 10 years he was away, things have changed in the Asian underworld. While extortion is still common, the new crimes are decidedly more white-collar.
We're known to be involved in counterfeit credit card, piracy of software, identity theft. They're very sophisticated.
Nowadays, these gangs text each other. And within 15, 20 minutes, you can get like 15 to 25 kids meeting you at a certain area. And they would commit a crime.
In some ways, Chinatown seems quieter than it used to be. But many believe it's misleading.
I always look at it like it's always a calm before a storm. Just because things are quiet doesn't mean there's nothing going on or that the police have it under control.
It's just a matter of time. It will come back, and it's going to come back very fast. It's going to be very dramatic.
There are signs that trouble is brewing. In 2006, Alan Long, the Dragonhead, or leader of the Hop Sing Tong, was murdered in his import-export business. No one has been arrested for the crime, and once again, the Chinese community is not sharing its secrets.
No one's going to come out and tell you who did it, even if they knew it. Okay, and so that's why the murder hasn't been solved yet.
But a year before his murder, Lung told police that Raymond Chow was trying to extort the Hop Sing Tong for $100,000. The FBI arrested Chow, who claimed the Hop Sing Tong had approached him to loan shark the money. Chow was held in prison for 10 months until the charges were dropped.
I don't know why they arrested me for. And then I heard the FBI told, later on I saw the newspaper, and they were talking about I was involved with some kind of extortion, and I wasn't.
Chow attended Lung's funeral to pay his respects. But he believes that many there suspected him of the murder.
You got 1,000 people in the funeral look at you. Pretty much they go in the shoe, look at the animal, look at the monster. You know, I mean, I see all kind of eye contact.
Chow claims to have turned his life around. He's spoken at several gang prevention workshops and is involved in charity work. He's also now the leader of a Chinatown Tong. Each time he enters, he lights incense at an altar and pays tribute to the Tong's history and its elders.
Today I become the head of the Qigong Tong. That's my title as a dragon head. I carry a lot of responsibility, not just about myself, also the people around me, my community, and my culture.
Raymond Chow is a survivor, a free man in Chinatown's gangland. What use he makes of that freedom is up to him.
I just want to be the normal people, just be accepted by my community, not to be alone like inside the prison.
Is he straight? Maybe he is. Is he just doing a good job of pulling the wool over everybody's eyes? Maybe he is. We'll find out if he ever gets busted again, I suppose.
It's just another mystery in Chinatown. The community shrouded in secrets.
The game always is the game. History always repeats themselves.